And I'll hand it over to you now, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Gloria. Welcome everyone today to the Sun Coast Writers Guild presentation on independent publishing. We've got a terrific panel of people that have all published on various platforms. And I have never done that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to someone who has and has been really a driving force here. Ginger Kuenzel is going to take us and lead us through the whole thing here. So go ahead, take it away, Ginger.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Well, we're going to lead together here. Anyway, okay, so I want to join Bill in thanking everyone for zooming in today. So it's been said that everyone has a story to tell. And as writers, we want to put our stories into book form so that we can share them with family and friends and perhaps the rest of the world if we're lucky. Today, that's easier and more affordable than it's ever been in the past. There are many different paths that an author can take to publish his or her book. Today, we have a panel of 5 authors, all members of Suncoast Writers Guild. They're going to tell us why they chose the publishing route that they did and what they learned from their experience. They'll also each talk about what they view as the advantages and the disadvantages of the route they chose and what their plans are for publishing future books. And we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So I would ask that you all hold your questions until the end. You can also use the chat function. I hope you all know how to use that. If not, just wait till the end and you can raise your hand. But if you want to type a question into the chat, Bill and I'll be sort of monitoring them, and whether it's appropriate to ask to, insert them into the program or wait till the end, we'll kind of make a executive decision about that. So now I want to introduce our 5 panelists. We have, as everyone knows, Harry Barnes. And in addition to Condo Capers, which is a collection of short mysteries set in Slash Pine, Florida, Harry is preparing to publish his 3rd work in a series that includes Barnes Bridge and She Called Him Jim, which is about the life of the Barnes family in Appalachia in the early 20th century. Then we have Deanna Shapiro. Deanna's titles include Conversations at the Nursing Home, The Place You Live In, a Multi-Generational Immigrant Story. And the 3rd one is Companions Along the Way, which I just bought, by the way, and it's great. John Van de Vender? John is a prolific author with at least 12 books that are available on Amazon. His works include the Minersburg series and novels from the Guinevere sagas about Britannia before the Round Table. Ed N. White is the author of the T.J. Tucker series, which includes Bell Tower Shot, Adult Entertainment, and Truth and Dare. All of these are available on Amazon. Ed's latest book, Misdemeanor, was published by Histria Books. And myself, Ginger Kuenzel, the author of Downtown, Hilarious Tales from a Fictional Adirondack Town. And I also co-authored a regional history book called Lake George Reflections. So with that, I think, Bill, you had some questions. You want to kick that off with, maybe we'll just start with Harry?
Sure. Harry, basically, I sent you some things a while ago, just asking you to kind of outline your process through independent publishing, what route you chose, why you chose that route, and maybe give us some descriptions of the highs and lows that you met along the way.
Thanks, Bill. Back in 2016, I think it was, I wrote the first book in this over the Barnes Bridge series, which was about my paternal grandparents, and as Ginger said, the 20th century. And I was motivated to write the book, but then as I finished it, what am I going to do with it? And I had not been involved in publishing at all. And so I talked to local people and tried to network with friends. And I stumbled around quite a bit trying to get some guidance on how to publish. and I was fortunate to find a writers and artists co-op not too far from me. And I worked with this co-op to publish my first two books, which is kind of unique. It's a very small local group, and it was pleasant working with them because I could go over and sit down with Valerie, and we could chat about things that we had to deal with. I just flicked something on my screen there that confused me. Sorry about that. So I would sit down with Valerie and work out the details and editing and formatting. And it was an easy way to work on the first two books. They did use an online media organization to do the final formatting and the layout of the book, which was very, very helpful in embedding the pictures and formatting the book with different fonts for chapter heads and fancy designs and so forth, which would have been a real chore for me.
Gary, do you remember the name of the group that you were working with? And is that something that?
Yeah. So a very nice fellow that I worked with, and it's here in my pile of notes. I'll dig it out as I talk.
But they were up north, right? It wasn't a local.
This was up north,
Yeah.
yes. And but and I'll dig out the name of the media company.
That's okay.
And working with them was very, very pleasant. And they actually did the final formatting before the uploading to Amazon. So that was very helpful. And then with my third book, the co-op dissolved and left me stranded. Fortunately, I stay in touch with the media company online, and my intent was to have them help me with my third book. I can handle the editing and so forth, but to do the formatting, I thought I would use his resources. And I believe I only paid him about $300 to do the formatting, which for what I got from it, I felt was worthwhile. And my plan was to go ahead and self-publish on KDP, which is not a difficult thing to do. The guidelines are very clear and they're very helpful if you upload your manuscript yourself. But Ed's success with history of books led me to take an easier path. So I submitted my manuscript to History Books, and I'll give them a call in a few weeks if I don't hear from them. And I don't have high hopes that they will be interested in publishing this book, but if they do, then they will do all the work for me. And I'm starting to get lazy and thinking that, my goodness, that's a nice path to travel if you can find a publisher. So I'm looking for other publishers also that are interested in historic fiction, and we'll let you know how that pans out. So and let me rummage a little bit for this media address. If you want to move on to the next speaker there, Bill.
Okay. All right. Well, before you go, is there any high or low that you experienced along the way that you'd want to share with us?
The publishing is less fun than the writing and editing. It's tedious. When I did want to learn how to do the self-publishing on KDP, And so I put some of my condo caper stories together, and I self-published that book just for the experience. And I set a day aside to learn how to do it. And the thing that I was most impressed by was when I had a problem, I could contact KDP. They schedule you for a callback. You can't really call them, but you can get in the queue for a callback, and they would usually call back within a couple of hours. And very patient and organized young people would talk me through the procedures. And then they would also send everything printed out, very, very clearly describing the steps to use.
Okay.
And I just found it very, very user-friendly.
All right. Anne had a question. She wondered if there was a charge for the from the co-op company that you used.
She can't ask any questions. Ginger said so.
No, I said we were going to make an executive decision.
Oh, yes, I forgot that. So
Like a
Ann, yeah,
rule.
the co-op cost me about $900.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks, Harry. I appreciate your insights there. Why don't we move on to Deanna? Deanna's got some poetry books and things that she's done, and I believe this has all been done through KDP. Is that correct, Deanna?
No,
Nope, my
what is
bad.
KDP?
Kindle Direct Publishing.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, I published 3 books and each one was published differently. So I'll share with you, they were all good experiences. The first one was Conversations at the Nursing Home, a Mother, a Daughter, and Alzheimer's. And this particular book, which I can show you a photograph of the cover. It was 2006 that it was published, so it's a while ago. I was interested in finding a publisher, and because it was about Alzheimer's, I think that really gave me a step up. So I went to Poets Market, which many of you may know. It's a big, thick book, and I went through it and I found the publishers who were publishing on themes that matched my book theme. I wrote about 14 queries because poetry books, you don't need an agent. I wrote these queries. I received about 7 or 8 responses, which I understand is a very good number. And most of them were not interested, but this one publisher in Augusta, Georgia, was interested. So I sent her, I had written 70 conversations that I had with my mother while she was at Porter Nursing Home in Middlebury, Vermont. So those 70 conversations were what I was offering. She looked at them and I never heard from her for 3 months. And during that time, I said to myself, you know, I have some other poems about my mother and myself. And it occurred to me that those poems could go very nicely with the conversations. So I sent her an email and I told her about this. And she, the very next day, she sent me an email and she said, congratulations, we want to publish your book. So I had a very nice relationship with her and she did everything. The only thing I had to do was to get the blurbs for the book. And the problem in working with a publisher, I found, is that they have their desires. And one thing I wanted in the book were some photographs. She had a very difficult experience with a prior poet regarding illustrations. And so she was very against photographs. But we finally settled on the fact that I would include 3 photographs. So generally, she sent me a format before it got published, and it looked fine. But then when it got published, there were 1 or 2 things that somehow I hadn't seen that I didn't agree with placement of. Nevertheless, it's a very fine publication, and I was very happy with it. So those are some of the highs and lows. But one of the very nice things about working with a publisher was that I got to be on radio shows, cable TV. I went to 2 book fairs in Manhattan where I actually met up with her. And those things were extremely pleasurable as a writer. So that was the first book. The second book that I wrote, The Place That You Live In, I self-published it with an online publishing company called Author House out of Bloomington, Indiana. I had a very good experience with them. Everything that I wanted, they did. And the people that I worked with were very congenial, very happy to help me. The only thing, and I bought a package, the only thing that was the downside of it, and it was my doing, was that I kept editing it. And for each edit, I was charged. So that's something to be aware of, that if you work with a publisher, self-publishing, be careful if they're going to charge you for editing, and try to have everything in perfect order so that you don't have to go back and edit. Other than that, I was also in charge of my own marketing, which I wasn't when I had the publisher for the first book. So I had to work on the marketing myself, and that was a bit difficult. I did do it through Facebook, and I did listen to marketing ideas. I did not want to purchase a marketing plan from Author House. It was getting expensive. So I was doing it on my own. I went, because this is a book about my father's family, my father's immigrant family, I did go to the Montreal Jewish Genealogical Society, because Montreal is only 2.5 hours from where we live in Vermont. And they had been very helpful to me with the genealogical research that I had done for the book. So I did present to them. It was difficult for me to find other venues. I worked hard at it, but it was very hard to find other venues to market the book. So that was the downside of that. And then this last book, which I talked about last month, Companions Along the Way, I also self-published, but I did it with a local publisher in Burlington. And that was a very fine experience because it was laborious. I had to get my own layout person, and I worked with her. She was somebody I knew from the Poetry Society of Vermont, and I worked with her on the layout. She was retired, she was wonderful, and she was happy to make any changes that I needed, and she was reasonable in her cost. And I bought a package with the Onion River Press in Burlington, which is set up to help local authors in Vermont. And it was wonderful to work with them. At this point in time, I had no desire to market the book. So things change as you get older, at least for me. I had no desire to market the book. I didn't want any marketing package. I bought the basic package from Onion River Press. I bought some copies for myself, and that was that. I did let everyone know, family and friends, that I had published the book, but that was it. So in the future, I do have some ideas coming up for books and chapbooks. And again, it will just be no marketing, just for family and friends. But they were all very good experiences in different ways and for different reasons. And so whom you choose to publish with, I think, is important to research or to get references from other people, so that whom you work with does what you want it to do.
Okay. Quick question here, Deanna, as far as the marketing, I know you worked hard on the second book, the marketing. I just wondered how successful you were with it. Did it work out for you? Were you happy with it?
No,
No.
I didn't. It didn't work out at all. I went through a lot of Jewish genealogical societies and things that pertain to Judaism, because I thought that was the theme and the root for the book. And a lot of those places did not pick up on it and were not interested in it.
Okay.
Can I ask something, Deanna? So you talked about you could have bought a marketing package, but decided it wasn't really worth it. What is the ballpark figure for what a marketing package would cost?
I don't remember. I remember that the package for the book, The Place You Live In, I think was like somewhere in the 800s. And I don't remember what the marketing package was. I didn't take it, and so it's not in my memory bank.
Okay.
Okay.
Deanna, I bought The Place You Live In on Amazon.
Yes,
you-
they're all available on Amazon, all my books.
Okay. Do you upload them there? Is that how it gets there?
Well, I think that all of the publishers that I used saw to it that it went onto Amazon. I think that was something that I did want in case people did want to buy them. And I made sure that that happened.
Okay. Thank you, Deanna. I appreciate the insights. Very informative there. Did want to mention that Harry made the link available to the in the chat room for the publisher, the media group that he used there, if you want to take a look at that. And why don't we move on to John Vandevender? And John, I know you've got a lot of books available on Amazon. A multitude of or different series, one the Minersburg and then the Guinevere series as well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience and how you've gotten to be so prolific there? Thank you.
Well, I sort of fell into this. The only thing I was ever any good at going back into high school was writing. I was interested in a lot of things, but I wasn't any good at anything. So I got a job with the biggest newspaper in New England, and I got to be a journalist. And I decided that that wasn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be. It was easy. Pay was bad and the hours were worse. And I got tired of writing about people doing interesting things. I wanted to go do interesting things. So I slid off into business and had a remarkable series of wonderful jobs and mostly great supervisors who let me do what I was good at. And in the course of all that, I found out I had some other talents besides writing, but I got better at writing. And I used to be a speech writer for the top people in the company and other companies that I went on to work for. So I had a well-rounded grasp of media. I was the spokesperson for Alcoa for 12 or 14 years with their recycling activity, which was a huge deal. So I got used to talking to people on the radio and all of that. But long story short, when I got into my last employer, which was Praxair, I was in the HR department, and I didn't do pure HR work, but companies don't really care for the PR guys in the companies because they want to do great, big, important things. And the chairman of companies don't want you to do great, big, important things. They want you to take care of the employees. So they had began stuffing employee communications, which I was a part of, into HR. And so I began hiring people and also doing employee communications. So in the course of that time, my boss lied to me. He said there would be some travel. Yeah, like 5 days a week. And always in some, little town in Kansas you never heard of. So there wasn't anything to do at night. When the team would come together, we'd go to a saloon and we'd tell stories. And they had all heard each other's stories because they had been there for like 15, 20 years. And my stories were all new. And I made them up as I went along. It was all like Bob and Ray. It was all improv, And this went on for several years. And I got pretty good at it. And one of the guys said, why don't you write that down? It never occurred to me to write it down. I was mostly little stories about the towns I grew up in Pennsylvania. Everyone was poor. We were all broke, but nobody knew that we were poor. We just thought, it was like flu. It would pass, and of course it didn't. You had to leave town to improve yourself, which is what I wound up doing. But it turned out my daughter was in HR she had more interesting stories to tell than I did about HR. She was hiring guys that used to like deliver atomic weapons and things like that, and they were looking for a second career, So I listened to her war stories and I said, there's a book there somewhere. And we sat down one summer and I recorded her experiences and I had my own and I wrote it up. And I looked up publishers of HR works, and this was about interviewing. And there were 11 of them. So I sent out 11 manuscripts and forgot it. And nothing happened. And I figured nothing would happen. But 11 months later, the phone rings. And someone said, is the book available still? And so there we went. And I had an actual book published. It was in the HR the catalogs and everything. I felt really good about that because the people at work had to kind of take notice, that you had done something above and beyond your job description. So that was my one foray into publishing as it traditionally exists. And it was a good experience. There were some radio and newspaper and magazine interviews after that. I used to do that for a living when I worked for Alcoa, so those were no-brainers. I got through all that stuff. But that was like a one-hit wonder, that was done. And I started writing down my stories about the town I grew up in, which I called Minersburg in the history, in the novel. It was a series of small coal towns, being Pottsville, Pennsylvania being predominant. But there were others, Shamokin and other towns you probably never heard of. And it was fun because I was recreating the 50s. And for me, that was a wonderful time. Because as a kid, you did not doubt. Yes, you had all the normal kid things of growing up and concerns and coming of age and all that. But you didn't doubt because your folks had gone through the Great Depression, and your folks had, beat the Nazis and the Japanese in the war. And for them, everything after that was a piece of cake, really. And so you knew that they knew that if you doubted, you were done. And so you didn't. What they transmitted to at least the children in our town was that you can go out and do anything you want, and you should, and don't be afraid of life. And so we weren't. And back then, of course, you still had polio. You had all kinds of things that they don't have now that were, every summer, some kid blew a, finger off with a cherry bomb or something. We rode on the highway at night. We squirted each other with DDT, all that. And we became solid citizens in spite of it. So anyway, I wrote down these Myersburg stories, and I had no luck with agents. I had some luck with one outfit, but it never went anywhere. So I said, the hell with this. And I said, I'm just writing for my own amusement anyway. And I was happy with that. And the thing that got me into publishing was that our writers groups, and I belonged to several, one of them met in a diner and one of them met in a coffee house. And of course, we would talk about what we were writing. And a lot of us were doing historical things. And people have a need to listen to you in these other, wherever you were, and they have a need to comment. When they're leaving, they come up to you and they have something to say about what they heard you talking about. And I thought that was interesting, people in the diner, for instance, that we would never, ever see again, would come up to our booth and they would comment on something that we'd discussed, because we were all doing historical fiction at that time. And finally, one of them said, "Are you going to publish this?" And I said, "I have no plans to do that." And they said, "Well, you need to self-publish it. You need to go to Amazon." And I knew nothing about any of that, zero. And so I looked into it, and you can go online, do it yourself. And I did that for the first novel I had, which was about the 6th century Britain, because I'm fascinated with the King Arthur legend. And so I did that, and it is not intuitive. I found it very difficult. It took me 10 days to do 80,000 words of like full time, some of the applications are fun and some of them aren't. They have improved the application a lot since then. It wouldn't line up things correctly. Even if you had them lined up and sent them in, when you went in to look at them, they'd be, the titles would be like over on the left side, or, the paragraph wouldn't be lined up perfectly at the start. And that was annoying. And that's Amazon. That's not on you, that's on them. That's how their applications work, because they're trying to fit Kindle and tablets and other things on the same application, and the thing is supposed to know who's looking at it on what platform. And it didn't do a very good job of that. But there were other parts of it that were great fun, like doing the cover. They have their own art. If you don't like their art, you can bring your own and plug it in. So I found that I went to I didn't want to pay for art. So I went to the Library of Congress. They have a whole online section of stuff that's in public domain. You can go in there and pick anything you like and steal it for free. And I credited it at the bottom of the thing anyway, just for the heck of it, but it's not necessary. So I took some public domain stuff, covers and things like that. I had my own picture for one of them that I took. And I used their stuff on a lot of them. And the application, as I did this, kept getting better. They kept improving it. And so it got easier, which was nice. It's still not intuitive. When you go in there, it says publish. Well, that doesn't mean you're going to publish it. That means they're going to give you a format to look at, which you then have to go in and figure out how to publish. This was done by, the site is done by geeks. And if you're not a geek, you're going to have a problem with it. That's just the way it is. But I noticed the last time I went in, they actually had a list of people who you can pay to do this for you if you want. You can give them the manuscript and then they will take care of all the details and put it in for you. And so I didn't do that, but it's nice to know it's there. It's all free, nothing costs you anything. They pay very little, it's pennies, and it's based on how many people read how many pages. But I have found as I have put more data in there, more different books in there, I'm getting little checks faster from Amazon that go into my checking account. And, I'm not going to be able to buy a Caribbean island or anything with this stuff, but it's kind of nice. And of course, that means when you file your tax return, then you are a published author. You have to put it in as a business into your TurboTax, and so I did that last year for the first time. And I found out that I don't understand it because I don't understand anything. Taxes are not my thing. There's actually a deduction in there for businesses. They gave me $1 back, big whoop, right? But it was the idea that, you're part of something much larger than yourself. And that's kind of fun. So I have, I think, 5 Minersburg books in there. There are 3 Camelot books in there, a new one to come that I'm working on. There's some other things in there. I'm interested in mythology, and there's 2 books on novels on that. And there's also a there's a factual book in there on my adventures in recycling with Alcoa, because we didn't invent recycling, but when we started hyping it, and we did it for purely commercial reasons to save the beverage can from legislation, we found out that everyone started to love us because we were doing a wonderful thing. And I found I could not check in when I traveled to a hotel somewhere. The clerk would sing the Alcoa jingle back that was on the ads, on the TV ads. So I knew we were making a connection out there. So if you've ever recycled a beverage can, we really made you do that. Or if you put it into a blue box for your town recycling. The word wasn't even in the dictionary when we started. So I thought there's a story there, and I put all my experiences in that and published it. And it's got pictures and charts and graphs and all that. And it took forever to do it, but it's done and it's in there. And I felt good about that because all the people who were involved in that mostly are gone. And that was prior to the internet. So there's very little about recycling, especially how it got started there. So anyway, that's kind of, I fell into all this. And I have to tell you, it got easier as it went along. It won't take me 2 weeks probably to put the next Guinevere up there, the next Camelot book, but it will take the better part of a whole week because you have to go line by line when you're publishing it, put it in, make sure the application hasn't screwed you over, which it will if you don't look at it. It will put spaces between paragraphs that weren't supposed to be there. It will compress things that you had, line by line, neatly tacked up. And it will change your typefaces. So you have to read every single word that you put in there and do that. But I found it was worth it. I found it was fun. And I will say that between that and my writing groups, including the Florida group, it has made my writing a lot better. And I like to think that I have helped some other people become better writers too. So that's kind of my story.
Thank you, John. It's an interesting story about the covers and such that you use there. I didn't realize the Library of Congress had so much information that you could download. That's a good resource to use. Reminds me of a fantasy writer that I was talking to not long ago, who would use pictures, well, parts of like the eyes of, movie stars like Brad Pitt or something on her covers. She said that she hoped that Brad Pitt would sue her someday just so she'd be able to meet him or whatever. But, it's the lengths that people go to. Sounds like you're getting better with your skills, and it sounds like Amazon is getting better with what they offer as well, which is encouraging for our industry, right?
Yes.
John, could I ask a question? So you've decided not to pay somebody to format it, because it sounds like that's the least fun, most frustrating part of it. So I'm wondering if it wouldn't be worth it.
And well, it might be worth it for, somebody who's got a real job somewhere and lots of family responsibilities. But I'm retired, so it doesn't matter. And I don't trust people. I mean, you're giving your baby to somebody you don't know. And they might do a journeyman job with it, but will they do as good a job as you could? And there's always mistakes in there that you have corrected, but that the application will not see. And so how will a hired gun know what you meant to say?
Interesting
They
point.
won't. They won't. And are they going to come back with you and check? Probably not. They're probably on a schedule, and they've allotted some time for you. And when the time is done, so are they.
Yeah.
So I did not check the prices because I'm not interested in that, but I imagine it's reasonable.
Harry, you have a question?
I was just going to make a comment. I used an organization called Word to Kindle to convert my first two books to Kindle format. And they did an excellent job. I scanned both books and I found no errors. They were actually able to upload the photographs, and the formatting was done very well. And they advertised $49 to convert your Word manuscript to Kindle format. They'll also set up your manuscript for paperback format to upload it, which I have not done. But I found Word to Kindle to be extremely efficient. They let you make changes if you catch anything that is not right once they format it. And I think Ed had used them in the past also. But for me, it was a good find. I don't know if I'll use them again, but I had problems with my first two books getting into a Kindle format, and I went ahead and used them. I think I did pay more than $49 for the second one. It was, I don't know, it might have been $100 or something, but a lot less aggravation.
Okay. Well, thank you, John. That's a lot of good information there. Appreciate it. Ed, you're up next, sir. You want to tell us about your experience?
Yeah, tough acts to follow. Excuse me. The first thing I want to correct is in the bio that you presented, those books that are listed that I had on Kindle, I have unpublished. And the reason I unpublished them is because they were filled with murder and mayhem and profanity and all that. So then when I got the publishing contract for my children's books, I tried to disassociate myself. And so I unpublished these thinking that they would disappear. No, they are there forever. All it says, if you go on to the Kindle feature and put my name in, you'll find these books. And if I go on to my KDP account and to my bookshelf, they're all listed right there. They just have a little yellow tag that says something like continue with the process or whatever it says. So all of these books are still out there and they're not going to disappear. And I had to own up to the publisher that I had previously published these children's books on on Amazon Kindle and explained that, you know, I did it mostly to get copies for friends and family and this and that and so forth. And they accepted all that. They accepted my mea culpa, you know, they didn't say don't do it again, but I'm sure that's implied. But anyway, as far as Kindle, I thought it was a fabulous thing. Now, I started writing 50 some years ago using, you know, yellow legal pad and a blue felt tip pen. And if I had to type anything, I had an old Hermes metal portable thing, kind of came with a cover on it and everything else. The war correspondents used to use them and everything else. That's all I had. So then when I started again in 2015, of course, I'm into the computer age, or I should say the computer age is there. I'm not. I struggled with this thing. And I got some help from a grandson. However, you know, he just kind of got me going, and then he moved to South Carolina. So my help was gone. So I did use the word to Kindle, and they were wonderful, even though I had trouble even understanding what they had done for me. But I finally did send it off to Kindle and got my first book published, and then I think a second and a third. And then I went to the Venice Book Fair, and part of the program was when Camille Klein was doing interviews from a publisher standpoint. And so I met with her, and the day I went up there, I was so sick with the flu that my wife had to drive me. I was not capable even of driving. So I went in and I met Camille, and I stopped about 6 feet away from her, and I said, I'm not going to come any closer than I am now because I think I'm really contagious. So we sat at a long table, and I brought with me two of the books I had published on Kindle, Adult Entertainment and one other, I forget which one it was. But anyway, she was impressed by that and encouraged me, probably to the point where that started my career. And so she also offered a list of agents, and she sent me a list of about, I think, 6 agents, and 3 of these she checked as use my name with these agents. Well, I did, and actually I got nothing from it. I did have one agent that was a little bit interested, but I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to write a query. I was just a real novice about all of this, and still am. But I did pursue it, and I did get my books published on Kindle. I think I put a total of 12 on there. 9 of well, they're all taken off Kindle now. 2 of them were accepted by History of Books later on, and I got the history thing from Authors Publish, which many of you use, which gives you, you know, authors that are publishers that are looking for certain types of books. And I saw one that was looking for children's books, and I sent them some stuff. They said, send us more. And I sent the whole manuscript, and, you know, 10 months later or 11 months later, whatever it was, I had a publishing contract. So I'm now in with History of Books for contracted for 4 books. They're already written. One published last August, as you know, and many of you have purchased that. The second one coming out this fall. This is part of a series. And the third in the fall of 23. And another adult novel that, adult in the sense of for older people to read, not kids. They're doing that one in the fall of 23 also. So my experience with Kindle was at the very rudimentary level, and it was long enough ago that things have changed so radically. When I went on Kindle the other day on KDP, I hardly recognize the formats. I mean, it's so dynamic that they are changing this stuff constantly to improve and make it better. I did try the Kindle Create a few years ago when they came out with that new program, and I submitted, or I tried to submit manuscripts. I was having all kinds of trouble. This was for paperback, not ebook. And so finally I called them and I got a hold of somebody. And I said, why all this trouble? It's not working. It's not coming together. Things aren't working out with the format. And she admitted that at that point, they were not really set up to do a paperback. Now, I don't know if they are today or not, but this was 2 or 3 years ago. And so that's why I couldn't get my stuff formatted properly to them. If I were to republish my books, which I'm thinking I might try, I would definitely go back to KDP again and just put some of those books on there. I'm thinking about doing it under a different name, and just for fun. I'm just looking for projects to do, but I wholeheartedly support Kindle. When I first started with Suncoast Writers Guild, at the very first meeting, I mentioned, I have books published on Kindle, and people looked at me kind of like, oh, that's nice. I mean, it was really almost an anathema to other writers there at the Suncoast that you self-published on Kindle. I mean, it was really looked down upon. As the year or more went by, and I did more and more books, and people started to read them, they had a different opinion. So it did work out to my benefit. As far as income from Kindle, I never did a thing, and not one thing, to market these books. I just let them ride for whatever they were. I did sell ebooks in 5 different countries, and made a few bucks with that. The problem there, I put all my ebooks on Kindle at 99 cents, which is the minimum, and that puts you into the 35% commission grade. So you get 35 cents for every book that's published on as an ebook, and I mean, it's just not worth the time. So you might as well bump up the price or throw it out there as a paperback and let it ride. As far as the submitting the thing, I think one of the hardest things to do is list your keywords. And there are a number of books available and services available to help you with keywords, and that is hugely important. Of course, I didn't do that. I tried to do it myself and read a few articles and whatever. So I basically stumbled through the whole process. It was fun for a while, and it made me feel good. But once I got in with a publisher, it's just, things are so much easier. They handle everything. History of Books has done everything, all the cover art and everything. One thing about Kindle covers, as I think it was Harry mentioned, John, about the Library of Congress. Yes, and there are also sites like Pixels or Upsplash that you can go to and get free covers from them, and they have some really dramatic photographs that you can upload for free or download for free and then upload with your book. So that's another avenue on that. But as far as the Kindle, what encouraged me at the time was when Andy Weir came out with the Martian, if you all remember that book and movie. Well, he put that book on Kindle as a 99 center. However, unlike my few hundred, I believe the first month he sold 22,000 books or 35,000 books, something like that. And eventually went on to get a $12 million movie contract, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it can happen. There's nothing wrong with Kindle. It offers great opportunity. I would do it again. But if I were to do it again, I believe I would send my manuscript to Word to Kindle. And for 49 bucks, they do the whole thing. And it's done very nicely. And so why fight it? And then you end up, as John said, you have, blank pagination or, all these other things that are self-induced. Maybe the application creates these problems too, but there's plenty of self-induced screw ups that you can do when you try to do these things yourself. So that's, looking at some of my notes that I made, as I say, I didn't recognize the KDP. It's been so improved. And even now, there's a whole category of marketing on there that you can use. It's as I said, a very dynamic thing. And I talked about pricing. Go for the bigger pricing. Don't do a 99-cent ebook. And the other thing that I use in my writing, I've mentioned many times, and again, initially when I said this is what I did, people looked askance. But I use the Grammarly, the premium or premier category of Grammarly, and I use that for everything I write. It comes up automatically for my emails and everything. I have to correct my emails or offer suggestions, I should say. Grammarly is not always correct. But I use that constantly. I couldn't write my name without using Grammarly. So that's where I am at, and that's what my experience was. And if I had to go back and do it again, I think I'd do a better job with my KDP publishing. But for anyone thinking about getting into any kind of self-publishing, and one thing above all, it's basically free. And it's free for as many times as you want to change your manuscript. There is no charge, zero, nada. So you can, of course, pay for extras like editing or custom covers or whatever. But to publish a book on there, if this is maybe your first book and you just want to get your feet wet, go for it, go KDP. The one drawback to that is, and I survived this, was that usually your publishers will not be interested in a book that's been published elsewhere. And in my case, like I say, I thought by unpublishing it would disappear off the face of the earth. Not ever. So, I just fessed up and told them, that's what I'd done. I explained it all, and they said, okay, and we're fine with that. I had to send them the covers that I had used, which I had covers done by my brother-in-law, who's an artist, and on the back flap, I had a picture of my niece's 13-year-old daughter in a disguise with heavy dark glasses and a ball cap pulled way down, because my character is trying to remain anonymous. My 13-year-old protagonist in the book is trying to remain anonymous so she can continue solving crimes in her neighborhood. So that's basically my experience, and independent publishing is great, and there are other places besides Kindle, but that's as far as I ever went. And if I were to do that again, I would do it without hesitation.
Well, would you say it's fair to say, Ed, that your experience with KDP has led directly to your contract with History then, right? Sounds like it.
Well, actually, what got me into History was the authors publish, where you get twice a week. They're up to like number 459 now, or something like that. The only thing I had with History, I mean, they've handled everything, the artwork and so forth. And they send me the artwork, the cover art for my approval. And on the first book, I made 6 suggestions, and I think they accepted 5 or maybe all 6 of those and changed the artwork. On the second cover, which came out they sent me last fall, last December, I think it was. It came on a Friday night, and because they're 3 hours ahead, out in Las Vegas, so it was probably still 3 in the afternoon their time. It was 6 at my time, and that's post cocktail hour and everything else. And so I looked at it, and yeah, it looked pretty good. I made a couple of suggestions and sent it back because they knew they were in a hurry for it. And the following morning, I looked at it a little more closely, and I was not happy with what I had suggested. I suggested a color change, and I was trying to think of the sports team that hosted or that used this particular color I wanted. and I couldn't bring it to mind. And so I said something, and it still didn't come out right. And so also on the character, I didn't look close enough. And when I showed a picture of that, they sent me the the proof thing, but it was already at the publishers now, and I sent the cover picture of the of Celia J there, and the backgrounds and all that. And like Bob said, she looks pissed off, and that's exactly what she does. She's rather than the kind of cute little girl with in the first book, this girl's a little more mature than I even like to see on this. And she's standing there kind of like with clenched fists, and her arms are kind of out like that. And she's looking, as Bob said, pissed off. So we'll see how that cover goes. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. But the other thing was, the only thing, and it's not a drawback, it's me, but History of Books sends out the author editor marketing questionnaire. So this is 4 pages that you answer these questions. You type them in, and it goes back somehow, onto this form, which you send back to them. But it asks you things like, what motivated you to write your book? Well, that's an easy one. So then you get into some other stuff, intended audience for your book. That's fairly easy. And then list of 3 published titles comparable to your own. That's a little more difficult. I spent an hour at the Northport Library yesterday and asked the librarian, for some suggestions, and she gave me half a dozen books. Unfortunately, they were mostly in a younger age range. I'm calling my book middle grade, but middle grade seems to have floating definitions, and I think I'm looking at it more in the upper level, getting into the 13 and almost 14, not quite in the YA category, but a lot of what the middle grade books are in the 6 to 9 year old, or maybe possibly the best I could come up with was some in the 9 to 12. So I'm kind of in a little bit of a vacuum there. But anyway, then they go on to ask you for BISAC numbers, which I wish I'd looked it up again. Maybe John knows what that is, but they're categories that the libraries use, I guess. And they're like about 6 or 7 digit numbers. So you might look for female detectives, and that's a number, 134795. And so you have to, I initially went through this whole list of hundreds of these things to find the ones that I thought were most comparable to my book. And so now that I have the list, I'll probably just use the same list again and just check, make sure they're good. And then again, the old keywords, and I struggle with this. Please list up to 10 keywords related to your book that would be valuable for search engines. And again, I struggle with that. A lot of people do. I have learned to use long string keywords so that you can string together 1, 2, or 3 and call it one. Like for a KDP, they'll ask you for I think it's 5, but you can actually put down, say, 15 words if you long string them, and you can look up the definition of that. But if I were to do KDP again, I think I would really either purchase one of the books on keywords or use a service and do that, because it's so important for the marketing. So that's basically it. KDP, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Ed. Very good. Good information. Ginger, you have some things you'd
Hey,
like to share with us?
Yeah, I just actually, Gloria, not yet, but I'm going to have you share that file I sent so I don't have to worry about it. But I just wanted to first, so this is the one book this is all backwards. This one book I wrote about, regional history, and it's a pretty thick book, and it was done by a publisher. And that was, I had very little to do with that because I co-authored it, but I was writing a series of newspaper articles for a newspaper in the region, and a publisher came to us and said, this would make a great book. So they took care of everything. That was back in the 90s. And I didn't really make anything from that at all, but I think the other guy that wrote it made a lot of money, and I think he donated it to good causes. Now this is the book I'm going to talk about today, because this is more, this is the one I did on KDP. And again, it came from being a journalist, because I was writing articles about life in America, which turned out to be mainly life in this small town in the Adirondacks, for a German magazine. And I'm a little afraid to say that I think a lot of Germans think this is how we live, which it was all made up, which is what, so as a journalist, you're either making stuff up or you're doing like really heavy topics about refugees and that sort of thing, or business or whatever. So and because I worked for business for a number of years, also in employee communications, John, I have a PowerPoint presentation because that's how we always did things. So Gloria, if you want to switch over to that. And we can go right to the next screen. Okay, so the advantages of self-publishing, and again, I'm talking just about KDP because that's all I've used. It's a very low investment. You basically maintain control of all aspects. And, that's one of the issues we've heard from some of the people who went with publishers, is that they weren't always happy with not having control. And the other advantage is, and this has to do with the very low investment, it's a print on demand, which means probably a lot of you are familiar with this, but people who haven't published on KDP, they only print when you order or somebody orders a book. And so if you live in Germany and you want to order a book, they actually print it over there. I think maybe in Poland or something. And so they don't have to ship it. So this whole print on demand thing is kind of an interesting concept. So there's no inventory, there's no waste of books. They only will print it if somebody buys it. And you actually can be the person buying it. So what I do is I'll order like 50 at a time, and then I will take them to bookstores and sell them to the bookstore. And what I learned is that the bookstores in general, the smaller independent ones and general stores, which is mainly what I was selling to in the Adirondacks, they prefer to just buy them outright, because they don't want to have to keep track of how much money they owe you, how many they've sold. They don't buy a lot at a time, but the nice thing is you take the books there, you write them an invoice, and they write you a check, or they might send it to you a week later, and then you never have to worry about it. And there's no price printed on my book, and I think that might be true for any of the KDP books. So basically, the bookstores can sell it for whatever they want. So I sell them to them for $10 each, and they either mark it up to 15 or 20, I've found. I tell them it's available on Amazon for 15, but they're getting signed copies, so they can actually charge more. And anyway, that works out pretty well. When I talk about maintaining control of all aspects, you make all the business, artwork, editorial decisions, and you're responsible for designing, editing, publishing, distribution, marketing, everything, unless you want to buy some of their packages, which you can do with KDP. Okay, so we can go on to the next slide. Okay. So this print on demand. So when I first printed it, the cover on the left is what it looked like. And I just used a historic photo of the store in the town where I live. And then one of the stores in the Adirondacks said to me, well, nobody even knows this is about the Adirondacks. You need to have something on the cover that will make people want to buy it because they're here in the Adirondacks, either vacationing or living here. So I just went back into KDP and changed the cover. And so everything that got printed after that had this subtitle on it. And also by that time, I had had a couple of newspapers do reviews. So I put a quote from one of the reviews so people would know, you know, Lake Wobegon, most people know that those are sort of short made up stories about quirky characters in a small fictitious town. So that was kind of the advantage of that. Wait, what happened here? Okay, so next slide. Okay, so some of the disadvantages are that it is a very low investment, but if you don't invest enough money, you might not have a good quality book, or you might not be able to market it, and so it might not go anywhere. So it's kind of the old saying of you get what you pay for. And then I said before, as an advantage, you maintain the control, but a lot of authors might not have the experience they need to know when they should engage someone else to help them with the formatting or with the marketing. They don't know where to find the resources. So it's like several of the people on our panel said, it depends on how much time and effort you want to invest in this, either to bring yourself up to speed on how to do all this, or to pay someone else to do it. So, and then the print on demand, it's kind of difficult to get mainstream reviews. I mean, I don't know why, but the New York Times has not reviewed my book, and it's not on their bestseller list. So I think if you go through a publisher, they definitely have you know, better media contacts and better channels to get it into bookstores and that kind of thing. So, okay, we can go on to the next slide. So one of the things I think you have to ask yourself is, can you market yourself? Do you have huge mailing lists? Most of us probably don't. You know, we have friends and family. And even if you have, you know, maybe 200 contacts, they might not all buy your book. So just having the mailing list, it's nice to be able to send out a book release email and newsletter or whatever to them, but that's no guarantee that any more than like 5% might buy it. And do you have a strong social media presence? Are you on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, Pinterest, all these other ones that you might have a lot of followers on, where you can publicize your book as well? And if not, if you're kind of, if you're not a big fan of social media, you're kind of cutting out that whole market. And do you have valuable contacts? So as you see, Oprah was about to pick my book for her book club, but I don't know what happened. She made another decision at the last minute. So I don't really have that many valuable contacts. I mean, I do know a lot of other journalists, and I was able to send them free copies of the book, and a few of them wrote reviews, so that helped. And then I have a very limited market because in the town where I live, everybody wanted to buy the book because they wanted to either make sure they were in it or that they weren't in it. So they needed to buy the book to find out. And so that was valuable, having that sort of very specific audience. And it's like Deanna was saying, it seemed like she had a very specific audience with people that were interested in Jewish genealogy, but doesn't always work out. So, you know, it's like Ed said, you kind of have to think about, your publisher wants you to think about who your target audience is. Okay, next slide. So what I like about Amazon or KDP is they have tremendous resources if you want to spend the time learning how to do this. So they have what they call KDP University, And that has a lot of webinars that you can either attend live or listen to the recordings about all the different aspects of how to self-publish your book through their platform. They have online user forums where you can ask questions of other people that are using it. And I think Ed mentioned they have templates for your cover, for all sorts of things. They have design resources. You can decide whether to do an ebook or paperback or both. And once you do, and a lot of this stuff is free. The design resources, most of those you're going to pay for, but all the other things are free. And once you get everything to the point where you think you want it, and you've got the cover, you've got all the inside formatting, all your pages at the beginning. Oh, and one thing I looked at just a lot of books I have, or picked up books in the library to see how they formatted like the first chapter, whether they always started the first chapter on the right-hand page and perhaps left the left-hand page blank, or if you could sometimes start it on the left, sometimes on the right. These are a lot of things as a reader you don't necessarily think about. But if you look at a lot of books, there's sort of ways that most people do it. And of course you can do it your own way if you want, but there's sort of a standard. And once you've got that all where you want it to be, you upload it, and it takes KDP a couple of days, but they will then get back to you and they'll say, oh, you've got some issues on page whatever and page whatever. So they won't go ahead and print it. If they must have some sort, I don't think anybody sits there and looks through it all. They must have some sort of program that identifies issues. And then you can go in and fix that. And once they accept it, then you can order author copies, which before you publish it. So before it goes live on Amazon, and they'll send you the actual book. And that's very exciting to hold your first book in your hand, and you can look through it, and then you can go back in and make changes again if you want. So you can make the changes then. And like I say, even after it's published, you can easily go back in and make changes. Okay, so next slide. So this is a screenshot of one of the pages. And so you see the reports is a KDP website page. So you get reports. You can see how many people have bought your book, what countries they bought it in. And you just see some of the resources you can get here. And like I think Ed and John both said, they're constantly getting better. They want feedback from their authors, and I think they take that feedback seriously and are trying to improve it. So, and you can see, so the bookshelf is where all your books are. You can go in there and click on any one of your books and get a lot of details. The reports, the community is where all the forums are that you can ask questions and get in touch with other authors. And then the marketing is your marketing resources. So we can go to the next page. And these are some of the marketing resources that you can use. So when you read a book on your Kindle, you know how a lot of times a book will come up as a free book before your book that you're reading actually opens. So you can actually participate in that program. I didn't participate in any of these programs, but there's all sorts of marketing programs that are relatively inexpensive, or maybe even free. You're just kind of agreeing to give away some books. So you're not actually paying, and you're probably not even losing anything because you're probably giving these to people who wouldn't necessarily have bought them anyway. But then you can do these Amazon ads. I don't know how much they cost, but I assume they're more expensive and give you more publicity. And then you see this Author Central there. If you go to the next slide, I'll show you. You can create your own author page on Amazon, which is what I did here. And so you can put your bio on there, a picture, your books, links to your blogs. And so I think that's that's really handy. If you get to be a famous author, which I haven't yet, you might have a lot of followers who really like to go to your page. And then when your next book is about to come out, you can do some publicity there to, to your followers who are anxiously awaiting their chance to buy your next book. So I think there's another slide. And this is just another screenshot of some of the resources that they give you for free to help you when you're trying to publish your book. And you can see over there on the side, the formatting, how you order copies, just, everything like that. Okay, and then we could go to the next page. So I think it's really, really great to learn from the experts. I just recently discovered Jane Friedman, who I would highly recommend getting on her email list, because either she or people she knows do a lot of webinars. And I think maybe sometimes they're free and sometimes they're $25. But I've done a couple of the $25 ones and they are well worthwhile. And then you can actually always have access to it, because the recording then, if you've paid for it, the recording is then online. So I recommend everybody check out janefriedman.com just bookmark it as a great resource. And on the next slide, I think is the last one. This is a handout that she sent out. Wait, if we can.
Yeah, I don't think that's it. I think you're on your
Oh,
last.
that's not on there? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So, Bill, do you have that handout?
Yeah, I can share that.
Okay, because I think we're going to share this afterwards with everyone who's on here. This was just one that and this is free. I'm not sharing it when she wanted everybody to pay for it. Anybody can get this from her website. And this is, I think, just a really good summary of what we talked about today, about all the different publishing paths and things you should know about them. So I don't know, are we going to send this out, or what are we going to do with this, Bill?
Well, I tell you, we can probably just send it out if everybody's interested, or maybe create a link or something. Why don't we just send it out via email? We'll do it that
Okay.
way.
Yeah. Or you can just go to her website and type in key book publishing paths. Maybe that's the easiest, and you don't have to, unless somebody wants to have it as an attachment.
If you want it, you can email me at williamrplatt@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to send it to you.
Okay. I see that Anne asked a question about, did I print my own invoices? I learned by doing. So when I went to the first store to sell them, they're like, well, we need an invoice, or receipt. So I went to Staples and bought a book of invoices. So I was just writing them out at the store. You can't really print them because you don't know how many they're going to buy. So I just had a receipt book, and I just did it right then. And it's one of those ones where one copy stays in the book, and then you tear one out and give it to them. So you have a record of all the ones you've sold. And I think it was John that mentioned, and I just did my taxes the other day, you actually get a 1099 from Amazon, and they tell you. And so they're reporting that to the IRS. So you have to make sure you put that on your tax return.
Okay.
Anne, you're on mute.
Well, I just had my taxes done, and I made like $14 on Amazon, and my tax person said, you're not going to do this because it costs $40 for the form to just send this to the IRS. So she said, unless you're making enough money, don't bother with this. And then she asked me, do you have expenses? And I really didn't. But she said, if you have paper and print and ink and all that kind of stuff, you can put it against that as an expense. But I mean, what did I have? A ream of paper, maybe. because I did it all on KDP. So,
Yeah, that's a
so
good
that's
point.
just something to think about when you get your taxes. I mean, I don't know about TurboTax. My husband did it one time and he said, don't ever get royalties again because it's more work than it's worth.
Okay. Yeah, I think it depends on how you're set up. I mean, I have
Yeah.
income from other journalist stuff, and so it just, I think it all goes into one point. It's just part of the 1099 process.
Well, one of the best things that I've heard today is that KDP is getting easier to use. And I think your slides there kind of indicate that. And you had a nice story that you emailed to me about your recent experience there. And again, if you could just share that, it really demonstrates how easy it's become to use in a sense.
Okay. Well, I'm a newbie at this as well. And I did Cancer to Caring on KDP and the poetry book, Poetic Journey of Faith on KDP. And I had help from my grandson's fiance with the cover for Cancer to Caring. And although I did the cover for the Poetic Journey of Faith, she sized it for me because that's the problem I had. So I went to a meeting of a women's group and the president came to me and she said, you know, we love your books. Do you have a new one or one that I could give to the board? Because I want to give them a present for leaving the board and what do people need? I want something unique, like one of your books. And I said, well, my other books are out of print. And that was surprised me because when Ed said his were still on KDP, I think I called at one point and said, you know, can you delete these and move them? So I didn't have that. So I said to her, you know, perhaps I could put together some of my travel poems. At that point, I was thinking about just printing them out and putting them in a little booklet. She said, oh, that would be terrific. Well, when I came to pull all of those, they were all in perfect form because they had been published before. So I didn't have to do any editing. And I put them together in order. And I thought, this is a small book. So I said, I can do this. So within 3 hours, I had all of the text together and I designed a cover because I had a picture, 2 pictures, one for the front, one for the back. But I knew I wouldn't be able to size it. So I sent the cover to my grandson with the dimensions. And I said, can you put this in the form that I need? Well, by that evening, he sent it back to me. So here we are. This is Wonder-Filled Spaces. And the back, I have Travel with Me, Marvel at the Awesome, Find Wonder in the Ordinary. So it took longer to get the copies than it did to actually go through the process because I had recent experience and in fact, I used the format from the last book and just saved this one as a new one. So I didn't have to resize it. And what I found is you don't want to order a proof copy because the first book I did that and it comes back with proof across it. And so you can't really use it except for yourself. So I just ordered one author copy to check to make sure everything was fine. I ordered 35 books. I gave her the 5 that she wanted, and I've distributed most of the others. And some of you have been recipients of those. So, you know, I'm 85 years old. If I can do it, you can do it.
And how long
Yeah.
did the whole process take you? Like a week or 2 or
It took me 3 days.
3 days?
And waiting for my grandson to get back and forth. So, I mean, I had it done within 2 days and I had to wait for him for the cover. So,
Very.
But I have
good.
time, you know.
All right.
And I think that's a good point that once you've done it, I mean, it took me a long time to figure it out. And I have to credit Lena was a huge help. She was the one that introduced me to KDP and showed me how to use it and sort of set me free. And then there was a lot of figuring out how to do things. And that it was at that time rather complex to figure it all out because I didn't know what I was doing. But now that I've done it, like you say, Anne, you can basically just save it as a template and drop in your new text and new cover
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So it's
Yeah.
much easier after, like most things, much easier the second time.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you need to remember is you don't want to save it as a PDF because then you can't change it.
Right,
You have to just save it as a Word document.
right.
Save a copy, you know, when you, and I had a note on my pad here to say that because I made that mistake. So I would write my manuscript in Word and then I would just make another copy, save that then as my PDF. And if there were problems, because there always was, then I'd at least be able to go back to my original Word copy. I did one, like I say, I made a mistake with a PDF situation one time. So then I got a PDF converter program from Soda, which is a Canadian company. And I never did figure out how to use that correctly. And it was such a nuisance. I just abandoned that and then, you know, just didn't make the same mistake again.
Well, thank you to all the panelists. Appreciate it. We'll open it up to questions and answers here. Lee, you've had your hand up. Got a question?
Yes, I do. I just did my first book, but I did it through a local printer, Hartman Printing. This is my book. And I did it that way, one, because it was my first, and you know, I wanted to be more hands-on and able to make changes, and they were great. I mean, they gave me a lot of leeway. And I did it that way also because every poem has a picture in it next to it. So it's not something I could do as an ebook because it was my understanding that like ebook, the color inside just doesn't come out very well. So my next adventure is a children's book, like 5 to 8 years old. And so I'm wondering what those who have published and spoke today, what you would suggest. Amazon, but just paperback, or try sending it to a publisher, or what?
I have a question for you, Lee. I know there's illustrations in your new book. Are they black and white or color?
The new book coming that I'm working
Yes,
on,
yes.
there'll be color.
Okay.
Lee, if you're hoping to sell your children's books to libraries, it's been a long time since I've been in the children's section of the library, but I don't know that they buy paperbacks just because they don't, they wouldn't hold up as well as hardcover. So that may be something you could think about, or you might go to the librarians and talk to the research person there. They might have some suggestions for you, or you could look to see who the publishers are of the same kind of book that you're doing. And maybe that's a query for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ann. I've spent some time the last couple of years going into the children's sections, and I don't recall seeing paperback, and I think it's for that reason. It's just not going to hold up. Plus, the first time you open it up, then the covers are kind of, they never lay flat again, But yesterday, when I went over to Northport Library, for instance, and asked for help, the librarian gave me 5 or 6 books, all in hardcover, and also there, all but one of the books that she handed me were in 6 to 9 age group. So you were talking about, I forgot what you just said, 5 to 8 or something like that. So, you know, yeah. I would research that category carefully because it seems as though it's getting more and more defined as to either by grade or age. And I was surprised when I started looking around through Amazon and everything yesterday, looking for more examples, that a lot of this stuff is graded. So it's graded from grade 2 to 4 or something like that. I even saw some, I think, from grade 1. So that's something that you want to investigate, so you get into the right category.
Thank you.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is Deanna gave a resource for poets, and your book is in poetic form. So maybe Deanna could give that resource again.
I wrote it down.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
When Deanna speaks, I listen.
Harry,
Lee, as I recall, when I had Word to Kindle convert my first 2 books to Kindle format, I was surprised to see that some they were in color. I'm pretty sure because I had especially the cover book, which was also the cover photo, which was also included inside. I'll have to go look at that again, but this Word to Kindle did such a fine job, and I do believe they added some color. And the other thing with trying to get someone to publish, as Deanna did, finding somebody that was interested in publishing poetry, I've looked for publishers also for the book that I just finished, and I looked for publishers in the county where this book took place, and I realized how many sort of little fly-by-night specialist publishers there are that I don't think I would want to do business with. And I came back to the Authors Publish listing of publishers, and I think it's very valuable to have a list that's been vetted by someone or somebody that can recommend a publisher. It's a real chore finding somebody that will work with you.
This would be, it's not going to be a thick book. It's only like 32 pages, it's very small. So that's why I was kind of going more with the chapter book kind of thing, but well, that's why I asked the question.
Lee, have you gone to the libraries and actually looked in the children's section, see what's there?
No, and I will do that.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at what is available. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Gloria.
I had a question. Is there a maximum and a minimum number of pages that you can publish on Kindle? Is there parameters that you have?
I think there's a max number of words. I think it's 100,000, but I'm not sure. I have to check this.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think you have, I think it's like 24 pages, but it depends on the size of the book. I think that's for 6x9.
Okay.
And it depends on whether you want a spine or not. If you want a spine on your book, it's got to be X amount of pages. I
Okay.
have to leave. So thank you so much, Bill, and all the presenters. You did an outstanding job.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Ann.
Ann.
Bye,
Bye,
Ann.
And
Good
Yeah.
day.
Regarding the question on how much can you stuff into Kindle, I have discovered that once you get up into the 90,000 word category, which is way too long for a book anyway, the app gets very kludgy and slow, and you don't want to really go there. I think there's a cutoff, but if it's 100,000 words, I would be surprised if it lets you do that. The problem with that is not the number of words, but how many chapters you've got, because each chapter heading requires so much space, and they suck down a lot of white space. If you have, like, if you're going to write the book of Genesis and you got 40 chapters, you're going to have a problem when you get to the end. It won't let you finish.
Okay, thank
I
you.
had one novel that was 150,000 words because I just kept writing, and I knew it was too long. And when I got there, it wouldn't accept past, I think, 90 or so thousand words. And so I had to do 2 novels instead of 1. It worked out fine. I just had the first book of and then the second book of, but that's a problem. Now the new app may be more wonderful, but I still think there's a cutoff. And, again, if you're pushing that many words, you're killing yourself, because especially for kids' books, which I'm hearing a lot of today, once you get up past the 30 and 40,000 words, nobody wants to talk to you. That's considered enough for like a middle grade book up to like age 14 or whatever it is. So if you're past that, you're pushing water uphill to a certain extent.
I just Googled, so it says, and this is from January of this year, it says that print books on KDP have a minimum of 24 pages and maximum of 828. And there's no maximum word count limit on ebooks. So, but I think you're right, John. You have to think about what people's, attention spans are these days.
My 3 children's books all run about 25,000. And when I went to the library yesterday, all the books I was handled were, I don't know how many words they were, but they were certainly thicker than my books. But whatever it is, my publisher seems to feel that was the right size for them. So it's published in a 5x8 format. And with everything I did on Kindle was a 6x9 on the paperbacks. But this is these hardcovers, and it's a case-bound hardcover, which I had to look that up. It has something to do with the way they sew the pages in, and is a superior way of producing a book. So they did do a real quality job as far as the artwork and the covers and the printing inside and the fonts they used and everything else. So it was, far greater than anything that I could have done through KDP.
And Ed, if you want to get books, how much do you have to pay to get? Do you get a discount on?
I don't pay anything. I've not paid 1 penny for anything. These books, they're distributed worldwide by History of Books. In fact, the first in the series is submitted into the UK book fair competition or something this month, I believe, and which was encouraging because I imagine it costs money to do that, and they were willing to submit my book under the children's crime fiction or something category. And so we'll see how it goes. I have no idea how it's going, other than local people like some of you who have told me, hey, I bought your book. Because the first report will come out sometime in April or May. And it is only from, it ends at the end of last year. So the book was published in August. And so it would only be for August, November, whatever of last year. So it's not going to give me an overall picture at all, but I'm anxious to see it. And if there is a royalty check with it, that would be nice too. But at this point, I have no idea where it's going. And I also asked that question recently and was told that apparently they have no idea how it's going. It's all handled through some third party or whatever. And they also just recently announced they have been marketing and promoting through Casemate. And they just announced recently that as of it's either June 1st or July 1st, they're going to be part of IDP, which is Independent Publishing Group, which has a much wider reach, global reach. And hoping, that will improve the possibility of sales too. And one thing I might mention too is Lena translated the book into Italian for me. And she had a lot of fun doing it. And I read some of it in the Italian. My Italian is not as good as it was at one time, but it was fun to read it and I would read it out loud, I listened to the sound. But she did that for me about a year ago, and it was sent to Histria. And at the time, Kurt Roback, the director, said that they would attempt to find a Italian publisher that would want to be involved in this thing. And other than that, I haven't heard anything more about it. But it is in worldwide distribution. So there you are.
Lee,
Deanna.
I would like to add, Lee, when you go to the library, you might check out the different sizes of books. Since you said it's only going to be 32 pages, the size might prompt what you will do. I've been thinking about the block books that are for preschoolers. So that wouldn't suit your age group, but it would be a way to preserve a book that's not that thick. I guess I'm just saying, check out the different sizes that might be appropriate for 32 pages.
I went on to Florida Writers Association Facebook and asked about sizing, and this got a great answer from someone, and he was saying either 8 by 8 or 10 by 10 be an appropriate size.
Good.
Eileen?
So I have a question, Ed. 5 by 8 in a hardback is an odd size, but it's amazing because I'm thinking of those Hardy Boy books that I read, every single one that was ever put out, and I'm envisioning them, and they were probably about that size and all hardcover. But I'm wondering, I looked at yours on Amazon, and I'm wondering why there's only the hardcover option, no paperback, no ebook. Is that something you didn't want?
Well, I asked about that, and they will do an ebook, but initially, they're coming out with this with the hardcover, and then they'll do other formats. But I don't know why they came out with the hardcover, and I'm happy about that. They did a wonderful job. One thing, thinking about Eileen here, who at one time tried to interest me in having a website. Now, I have no social media contact whatsoever. In fact, just recently, I realized that I had a Facebook account, which I remember now that I started to sign up for Facebook years ago, and then I stopped because I didn't like all the questions they were asking me for my profile, so I just X'd out. However, apparently I gave them enough information that they gave me a Facebook account. So I just used it the other day, and I was surprised it came right up and doing anything.
Learned a great deal from this. Something in progress. Anyway, my self-publishing experience goes back to the 80s and 90s, back when you would write the book, send it to a publisher, to a printer. They would print it for you. They'd send you a truckload of books. You'd rent a forklift, unload them, and put them in a warehouse that you rented and sell them yourself. And that was what self-publishing was to me. But it's changed now. I can see that. And I'm going to have to do a little bit of research and catch up with the times.
As we all are, no doubt about
Yes.
it. Well, we are running a little bit long here. I want to thank all our panelists today. It was very interesting to find out what we had here. Ginger, thank you for all your help. And will you make that PowerPoint available to everyone as well? Because a lot of good information in there.
Sure. Yeah. How do you want me to, if people want it, they want to email, or you want to just send it out to?
Yeah, you can email me again and
Okay.
go ahead, Gloria. You have an idea?
Yes, when I send out the recording, maybe I can attach it I'll see if there's enough room, and also the other one that you had. Can see if I can
Okay.
send it out with the recording.
Excellent. That'd be a great
Yeah,
idea.
you know what, Gloria, I meant to put that last handout into the PDF. So let me just send you a new PDF so it's all in one file.
Okay.
Terrific. Okay. April, Indiana, so we're kind of looking forward to that. And other than that, it's been a terrific Saturday morning. Gloria, anything else you want to say before we close out today?
Yeah, my internet's going on and off. So I have a
Thank you,
whole-
everyone. Appreciate
Thank
all
you,
the
Bill.
information.
Thank you,
It's
Bill.
Thank
okay.
you, Bill.
Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you.
Good
Okay.
job. Great.
Good job.
Yeah, very
Bye,
good.
everybody.